Hi, y'all. This is Kristen Chenoweth.
Hi, I'm Gloria Stefan.
This is Sarah Bareilles.
Hi, I'm Patty Lapone.
This is Lin-Manuel Miranda. You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Theater Podcast. I'm Alan Seals, and today's guest, Eric Sirakian, continues our takeover from the Kite Runner on Broadway. Gosh, an amazing show, an amazing story. Again, if you haven't seen this, you've got to go see it. It sheds so much light on regions of the world and things that everybody needs to know about. Eric is such an amazing dude as well. He's a shy kid who found his home on the stage, which is a story we hear a lot of. He found his tribe and his chosen family. He's already had this amazing experience both in New York and in London's West End, and his career is just taking off. This is his Broadway debut. He went both here in the States to Yale and in London in the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. Something he said resonated with me. He said he called Yale an education, but the Royal Academy acting training. So one was an education, one was training. Two different approaches to the craft. I'll let him tell it because I'm about to butcher the story. But Eric, if you're listening, thank you for sharing an amazing, amazing time. And the vulnerability he has to have on stage every night is admirable. And we talk about how to come back from that, how to come back, go to that character, go to that dark place, and then come back and be Eric again. You have to let it go. So cannot wait to share this episode with you. Find me online, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Is there anywhere else? Facebook? Yeah, I'm still on Facebook. And follow, give a like, give a rating, give a review. 5 stars, please. That's what the Uber drivers say, right? I don't know. And now everybody please enjoy this episode with Eric Sirakian.
Here you go. 1, 2, 3.
Today's guest is making his Broadway debut in The Kite Runner on Broadway, but he's an incredibly well-versed actor out of London with credits including The Jungle on the West End, Twelfth Night, The Comedy of Errors, and Pericles at the Shakespeare Globe. You can also find him in the upcoming Netflix film Havoc. Eric Sirakian, welcome to the Theater Podcast.
Hi, Alan. Thank you so much for having me.
Those Pericles, those old Greek names that always get me. I instead of Socrates, I always in my head I'm like Socrates. Nope, gotta get it right.
You said it perfectly.
So you went to, you actually studied at Yale and trained at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, which are 2 credits that definitely I want to cover because it's just incredible. But as a young lad, where did you first decide that this was your path, or did you fall into it, or was it a conscious choice?
Several things I think contributed to this. I was an only child. I'm very shy. And so when my parents put me in my first acting class, which was like an acting class for kids, I was around 4 years old. It was like the best thing ever. I was, got surrounded by other kids, which was kind of rare for me, and I got to express myself in a way which, as a shy kid, was completely new and different. I think they say a lot of actors are shy. I think this is true. They tend to seem extroverted and larger than life when you meet them at parties, but secretly, deep down, I think a lot of them started as very shy kids. I did, my first kind of community theater production when I was 6 and caught the bug that way. Another thing that happened in my life, which was a huge blessing, was I had a great aunt and uncle in London who we used to visit. And my parents, starting when I was really young, maybe like 8, would even put me on a plane sometimes and send me off to London on my own to visit for a couple of weeks and then come back.
When you were 8?
Yeah, during my school vacations. So, and they introduced me to the theater in London, starting with musicals and then working up to plays, and I just completely fell in love. So London, I guess, was the place where I really thought, this is it. This is what I have to do. Which is why I always wanted to go back there, which is why
Yeah, you had this multicultural experience to kind of get the Americanized version and the we'll call it the classic version, because it's interesting to me because when I talk to people on the West End, the culture out there, the attitude towards the arts is so it's different in that. And tell me if you experience the same thing. But I was going to say it's different in that here in the States, it feels like everyone's treated more like a celebrity, whereas in the UK and London, out there in Europe, everyone it's treated more like a necessity. Does that make sense?
You mean acting and theater?
Yeah, acting, because it's like part of life. You just go out to the theater, whereas in the States, it's how many followers you've got on Instagram and what headlines you're making. Whereas in the UK, the West End, it's just this is what we have to do. This is storytelling. This is art.
Yeah, unfortunately, recently, I think London's West End is coming to resemble Broadway more and more in that way. I mean, what you're saying certainly was very true 10 years ago, and hopefully will stay true. I just see a trend of the celebrity thing happening now a little bit over there as well.
Well, you don't have a British accent, so I assume at least grew up, if not were born in America. So, are you? What's your heritage now? Because I know that you do have some heritage and from a family perspective that is from Afghanistan and whatnot, right?
No, my family is Armenian actually.
Oh, Armenian.
Yeah,
Okay.
so same part of the world, but I had to do a lot of research on the Afghanistan side of things to learn about that culture because it was very new to me.
So, but were you born in America and then like I guess okay, I'm asking 5 million questions at once right now because I have so much I want to ask you about. Okay, so start out. Okay, talk about the Armenian heritage.
So yeah, I'm a first generation American, but I'm also 100% Armenian on both sides. My parents were both Armenian, met in the Boston area when they were students, and yeah, I'm very, very close to that culture and that language. It was my first language when I was growing up, so I learned English when I went to school when I was around 5, and yeah, it's a very important part of who I am. We are a small tribe, the Armenians, but we're very, very proud and um, I would say very accomplished for being small in numbers. Kim Kardashian is who often comes to mind, but we have lots of amazing artists and innovators and leaders all around the world.
Okay, so Armenian, then it sounds like your parents met in Boston when they're going to school, and I guess when they were putting you in performing in classes and whatnot when you were 4, and then you were starting to do theater and whatnot, did they always support that side of you, or were they more academic focused? Were they always more like, well, always get a fallback, or what was
Well,
what was sort of that upbringing?
I was really blessed as a kid, and I had a really amazing childhood because my parents let me try all kinds of things. So the acting class was like one of a dozen things maybe that I got to try, like playing the violin, playing soccer, camp, all kinds of stuff, which was such a blessing because I got to really find out what it is that I like. I didn't I left no stone unturned, and sports definitely wasn't it. I wasn't very good at that, and I was very good at school. And I made good grades, but this is the thing that I loved more than anything. And in the beginning, of course, being immigrant parents from a particular culture and a particular mindset, in the beginning, of course, it was a little bit like, what, really? Are you sure that's what you want to do? Which is not unlike a conversation that happens between Amir and Baba in our play, where Amir
Hmm.
says, I want to be a writer, and Baba says, come on, get a real job, be a lawyer, be a doctor, whatever. So of course those conversations happened, and it was around high school, maybe when I was feeling really serious about it and talking like this is something I want to do. And I have to say I was really, really blessed to have parents who ultimately were very supportive because they saw how much I loved it. I think after a certain point, maybe in college, they saw that I was actually not terrible at it. And yeah, combinate and they really enjoy it. They love the arts. They love music and theater, and it's a big part of their life anyway. So I think all of those factors came together for them to get behind it and get really excited.
And then at Yale, did you study performing theater drama at Yale specifically, or was
Well,
it something different?
it was the theater major was very academic. I was an English major and theater studies double major. The acting and the performing stuff that all happened outside of class. So I did loads of plays. I directed plays. I wrote plays, acted in plays, and it's the most awesome undergrad I think. Well, I've only tried one, so I can't compare. But it was a really awesome undergrad to go to if you just want to get to make lots of theater, because there was so much happening. There's so much talent, so many resources and support from the most amazing teachers and faculty who one of them came yesterday actually to see the show and surprised me. So, to this day, I feel their love and support. And it was very special.
I like that they sort of ask you to try the different facets of it, like acting and directing and writing and whatnot. And at any point,
I kind of was curious, and I wanted to,
really?
yeah, I wanted to really figure out what it is I love, and in the end, acting is the thing that rose above all the others.
What is it about acting over the other forms of entertainment?
Well,
like
I love writing
directing?
too. I really love writing. It just feels that with acting and writing, you're really at the center of telling the story. I loved directing, but for theater, I kind of felt like as a director, I was kind of a facilitator. My job was to get the best out of everyone who was actually up there. And I'm sure theater directors would disagree, and there's a lot more to it. And maybe I wasn't a very good one, but I love being in the fire, in the heart of what's happening.
That's speaks to, I think, a different type of mindset, because I like the idea of directing, because directing I was going to say, directing comes with the element of control. So if you like to control the bigger picture, you can be a director. But it also comes with the stress of being in charge, because if things go wrong, it's your fault, more or less.
It's in many ways a thankless job, because you get a lot of blame and maybe not enough credit.
Right. That's actually a really good point. If everything works, then it's just like, oh, look at that great lighting design. Look at that great solo over there. But yeah, if it doesn't work, it's like, well, yeah, you're right. Oh, that's horrible. Okay. All right. Remind me not to go into directing. Producing, that's different. That's fun, because then you can help directors do their thing and create great actors. So the training, though, you went to Yale, then to Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, and I guess so. Now you've gone to school. Not only have you performed in London on the West End and on Broadway now, but you've gone to school in London and in New York or Connecticut. We'll call this the New York area. So what was the difference for you in the training that you got at Yale versus the Academy of Dramatic Art? Like, being out there in London, was it a different approach?
I didn't get much training at Yale. Yale was an education. It was a chance to learn about the world. Learn all kinds of things. Learn about myself. Try a lot in terms of theater making and get an experience of it. But when we talk about training, that's what I got at drama school. That was like really, really practical elements of craft: how to use your body, how to use your voice, how to inhabit a character, how to use text, how to get out of your head and live fully in the present moment, how to bring all of these elements together. They were very different experiences, and I think it's important and great for for actors to know about the world, to have an education that's a little bit broader than just how to use your voice. So I feel really, I keep saying blessed and lucky that I had that first. And I think it set me up really well to then just focus on the craft.
There's a lot of craft in the Kite Runner. It is a very touching, very heartfelt, very I was gonna say intimate, if that's the right word. It's raw, and it exposes a lot about especially non-American culture that a lot of people just kind of don't realize that they take their own lives for granted here in the States or other parts of the world, right? And so I guess real quick before we get into the actual like deeper topic of the Kite Runner, like, can you summarize, are you practiced at this, at summarizing the overall family story that is the heart of the show?
Oh, you want me to say what the show is about?
Yes, more. That's a better way of putting it.
Well, it's about two best friends. One is very rich and well off, has a wealthy businessman dad. The other is his servant. So wealthy dad and wealthy kid have servant dad, servant kid who live with them, in their estate and take care of everything. But these two kids, the servant and the rich kid, grow up together. They're best friends. Something really, really bad happens where the wealthy kid ends up betraying the servant kid and spends his whole life with guilt about that decision and that moment of his life. And in the after going to America, becoming really successful as a writer, getting married, having a great life, basically, he's called back to Afghanistan to do something which will redeem himself for the wrong that he committed when he was 12 years old.
It's a good summary. You left out the really the surprise twists for anyone who hasn't read the book or seen the show yet, which is good. Yeah,
in too many spoilers. So
yeah, you don't want to give away spoilers.
Most people come to the show having read the book, so but you don't have to.
Yeah.
You can. It's a good experience, I think, if you haven't.
Oh, it totally is, and in the way though that it translated from the book to stage, it doesn't leave anything out as far as I can tell. Like the whole story is there.
Yeah, it's very faithful to the book. So
yeah, the whole story is there, and the way like Salar, the tabla player, and like you and the rest of the cast are using the instruments, the handheld noise makers, instruments on stage, right? Like the whole thing is like watching a movie, because we've got underscoring the entire time. It's not a musical. There's no singing, but there's music and rhythm, and whether we realize it or not, after 3 minutes in, the music just becomes part of the story, along with the things that make the wind noise and everything.
I think what Salar does especially is amazing. It's so much the emotional core of what we're doing. Without it, I don't think it would be nearly as impactful. Music is just so powerful.
Oh, absolutely. So when did you first then really start getting connected with the process of being involved with this production of the Kite Runner?
Well, I found out that I was going to be doing it at the very beginning of March, but we weren't starting rehearsals until beginning of June. So that gave me about, 3 months to prepare on my own. And I knew I was going to have to use that time because rehearsal period was very short. It was only 3 weeks in the rehearsal room, 1 week of tech, a couple weeks of previews. But with this kind of story, and especially like I mentioned before, in entering and inhabiting a culture which is different from my own, I knew I was going to need, all the time I could get. So it started for me in, I guess in February when we were auditioning. That's when it really started. That's when I started investigating the story and rereading the book and everything. But then, the research and prep in earnest began in March.
Well, how did the audition come around? Because you said you auditioned in February, this 2022, and the production was already was on the West End, doing well out there. And like Damian Sandus, the associate director, came over with the production and helped stand it up here on Broadway and whatnot. So, I guess at what point did you find out that you were going? Did you know you were going in specifically for one role or the other, or was it just kind of coming in and doing your monologue and they'll place you where they like you?
So the production was in the West End a few years ago. It was actually on the West End while I was still in drama school, and I had heard about it. I had good friends who were in it. So I knew a little bit about it, and when I heard it was going to be in New York, I wrote to one of those friends who was in the show, and I said, I just read the breakdown for this. Do you think I would be good as Hassan and Sohrab? That seems like a really interesting role. And he said, yeah, you should give it a go. I mean, he wasn't hugely for or against me trying, but I think just having someone say, yeah, give it a go, gave me enough confidence to put my name forward. I went to the open call audition, the Actors Equity open call, because I'm a member of Actors Equity, and that was on Zoom. Actually, the entire process was on Zoom, which worked out great for me because I was in London. I wasn't living in New York at the time. So I did that. They asked me to send in a tape for Hassan and Sohrab after that initial meeting with the casting director, Laura Stanzik. Then there were 3 meetings with Giles and our director and the rest of the creative team that followed that. So it was like a 5-step process before I finally got the offer. All virtual, all on Zoom. Giles and I did meet in London after I had gotten the role, just to touch base, and I had some questions and wanted to get some more information from him before we started. But everything up until the offer was on a screen, which is very, very strange and also really lucky for me being abroad.
That's so cool. I didn't realize that it was all that you were auditioning for New York from London. Yeah, that's really, really neat. And especially, I mean, I guess Sohrab too, but I was going to say especially Hassan, like there are some just horrible things that happen to both of these children in the story. Yeah. And I guess when you are approaching this, when you're starting to study the text and build these 2 characters, and you have to build 2 characters, right? They're 2 distinct different people in the same show. So you're one character in the act 1 and the other character in act 2. And when you're starting to approach this, given the subject matter, like how did they work with you on making this seem real without it going too far? And then also the latter part of the question is like, how do you, Eric, separate yourself from this at the end of the night and go home and not let it affect you?
That's a really big question. So in terms of making the scene real and everything, we have a brilliant fight director, Tom Shaw. He's one of the best. He's done probably every other show you've seen on Broadway, if not more. And he just has a really great eye for storytelling. So we made sure that that it was very clearly and tastefully told, so that the audience would understand what happens without going over the top with it. Because actually, I think the power of suggestion is sometimes a lot greater than actual visual representation.
Leave it to your imagination, it can get worse.
Yeah, exactly. So that's how we did it. That was the approach, and everyone was really, I mean, every night everyone who does that scene is really kind and respectful, and we always practice it at fight call before we open the house. In terms of dealing with the heavier subject matter, I take a shower after every show. Even on a 2-show day, even if we have a matinee, I take a shower because I don't like to enter the world carrying any of that. I think my training probably really built up my inner strength, my ability to step in and out of roles and separate myself. But certain roles do require a little bit of extra self-care, and I don't shower after every play that I do. This one I do have to.
So that's really interesting. So you're like washing off the ick, the story, so you can become Eric again. It's like metaphorical and literal that you're just like, all right, just letting it all go down the drain right now.
To remind me to separate, from all of it. And it does work.
Is that part of the?
Yeah.
Was that part of the training? Like, was that something you developed on your own, or did like part of the training that you received over life? Was they're like, you got to find something. You have to know that you need to find something that's going to help you separate and detach yourself from this character that you then flip a switch and can go back into 8 times a week.
They didn't really put it that way, but what happens in training is that you really are pushed to extremes. You really are made to go to some really, really dark places and some really scary places within a very, very safe environment. So, having to learn that on your own, on a job, I think would be really hard, but within the context of drama school where you have lots of support and, the wisdom of your teachers and everything, I got to practice doing this type of thing. And in practicing, I also had a chance to experiment with and figure out what works for me in terms of all the stuff I do around it to make it possible. Like something I took up in drama school, this was in our 2nd year, we were doing Greek tragedy, and it was really a really hard project. It was one of my hardest projects. I didn't have any fun. I mean, I really hated the process, and I had to figure out what to do outside of all of that to deal with it. And what I took up meditation. So now I do TM, which is transcendental meditation. I was inspired by David Lynch, who's one of my favorite filmmakers, who practices TM as well. And it's a really simple technique of finding a little bit of quiet for yourself twice a day, once in the morning, once at night. And like that, that's just something I reached for and came up and incorporated into my life based on what I was being asked to do in school. And I do it to this day. It's been more than 5 years, I think, that every day I meditate twice a day. So, things like that came out of the experience. It's not like my teacher said you should meditate. It's just having the chance to practice and try things and realize what I need in those 3 years. Really
That's tough, and I've heard stories about this that are similar. Is that really serious drama training, acting training is essentially can be compared to group therapy, because you're going down some very dark places or exploring things that are really uncomfortable about yourself, and you're doing it in a room of sometimes relative strangers, but you have to be made to feel safe, and you can't feel judged. And I just think that's incredibly hard, and it's probably a good way to weed out people who really can't take it very seriously or aren't comfortable going to that extra dark place, right?
Yeah, the difference between acting and therapy is like therapy is for yourself, it's to heal yourself, and acting is in service of something. So you might need a lot of therapy to do acting, but they're definitely not the same. Uh, Obviously, yeah, you bring yourself to the acting, so you may need a lot of support outside of it in order to make that possible.
Huh. Do you have a favorite moment from the Kite Runner that is not when you're on stage, when it doesn't have to deal with Hassan and Sohrab?
Um, I love the wedding. I love the dances. I don't get to watch them because I'm at that point I'm upstairs in my dressing room getting ready for my entrance as Sohrab. But I hear the music and I hear the joy. And I have obviously I've seen it in rehearsals and in the dress. And that's one moment that I really wish I could have been a part of because it's, a moment of joy and authentic Afghan culture and um, dancing and music and
Well, you mentioned this at the beginning that you had to learn a lot about Afghan culture, and then the show has a cultural advisor. Let me know if I'm saying her name right. Humaira
yeah,
Gilzai.
yeah,
Yeah.
she's awesome. She's been so helpful. I play a Hazara character who is Hazara, um, which is an ethnic minority in
Mm-hmm.
Afghanistan. So first thing that came to my mind when I got the part, I thought I have to learn the language and I have to learn about what, who these people are and what it means to be Hazara. So I found a PhD student at SOAS, which is a university at London, Rabia Khan, who was doing her dissertation on Hazaras. And I went and I met with her and I asked her a bunch of questions. She was really helpful. And she actually put me in touch with about a dozen members of the Hazara community in London and in New York, actually. And I wrote to all of them. Every single one responded. Every single one met with me. I had
Wow.
like 12 or so interviews with people, most of whom had very recently left Afghanistan, who were able to tell me about the Hazara history, culture, what it means to be in an ethnic minority, and all of the persecution that they faced over the years in Afghanistan. Um, I mean, it's just like unbelievable what these people have gone through, and unbelievable also is their resilience and their hope and their courage. And there was a policy of mass extermination of Hazaras in the 1890s, which set a precedent for these people being seen as like outsiders. They don't belong. They're not pure Afghans because Pashtuns are the dominant ethnic group, and um, these people are also Shia Muslim for the most part, whereas the majority are Sunni. So it was really a racist thing because they look different. They're called like the Chinese people of Afghanistan. They have slightly Asian looking features.
Hmm.
So a racist thing, which was justified by the religious thing, they were attacked on religious grounds, but really it was racist. And as recently as April, a Hazara school was targeted. Some like 16 high school kids were killed. So this is ongoing, and to hear these people talk about their story not as like ancient history, but as something that they're facing every single day. Most of them had relatives still in the country, and that also was like a huge motivator to really do right by them. To tell this story well and to learn about it, to tell it properly, to do a good job. So I'm so grateful to all of them for they were so generous. I felt a lot of parallels between my history as an Armenian and what these people are going through. There was an Armenian genocide in 1915, and my people have faced persecution at the hands of the Turks. I would say it's more ancient history, but there was a recent war with Azerbaijan, which shows that kind of animosity and hatred towards Armenians continues. So, yeah, I felt a bond with these people in terms of shared history, and yeah, made me really excited to be able to tell this story. What I really love is that it's just so rich. The story is so rich. It offers so much for an actor to explore. I mean, we haven't even talked about the whole exploration of what it means to be 11, as an
Yeah.
actor who's not 11 and inhabiting that physically. And there's just so much to explore, and it's so cool when you get a role like that I guess this is slight nerd in me speaking up, but really get excited when there's a lot to dig into and explore.
Well, I think it goes to show that you love the work, you love the craft, and this is what you need to be doing because you're putting the time in to make it real and authentic and taking it with you, learning the language, learning the food, learning all about the history. The history is probably one of the most important things that everyone should know about. And that's part of what the Kite Runner, it's a fictional story, but it's based on completely true events that are being paralleled even to today. It's really sad. Yeah. Well, on that high note, let's wrap up with three questions, closing standard questions I ask everybody. So the first one, just very simply, is what motivates you?
I get really excited. There's still like a little kid in me when I watch something, whether it's a play or a movie, or I read something, a story that just like completely transports me and takes me on a journey and teaches me something about the world, or inspires me by its beauty, by the sheer brilliance of the talent behind it, or I'm still awestruck by works of art. And that's, if I can work towards that, if I can create, a meaningful experience in someone else's life, that's the best thing. A metaphor for this, I love cooking when I have an audience. I love to put something in front of someone and they say, "Oh, that's so delicious. Thank you so much." I think acting is the same. You can offer something that makes somebody's day better.
All right. So the next question is, what advice would you give to your younger self and younger people listening now, starting out down a similar path?
Wow. A lot, but maybe most simply, if you love it, if you really love it, and if you really desire it, and if you focus on those things rather than all of the fear and anxiety and worry and practical concerns and whatever, if your love and your desire lead you, then everything works out.
That's beautiful. There's our mic drop quote right there. All right, last question. This is super hard. If you could only see one show for the rest of your life, but you could see it as many times as you want, what would you see?
Oh my God. A show like a theater show.
Sure. First thing that comes to mind.
Oh my God. As many times as I want. Like a show, not like a play in different productions, or...
Well, interpret it. I let everyone interpret it how they want to. So, like, what do you most desire to see over and over again, even in different incarnations?
Okay. I'd have to pick. I can never get tired of, like, Tennessee Williams. I'll say A Streetcar Named Desire. I could see that a million times.
Well, now you got to go see Cat on a Hot Tin Roof off Broadway if your schedules don't completely conflict. But yeah, that's good. Okay, where can we find you on social media?
Well, I'm new to Instagram, but I now have Instagram. I'm on Facebook, and I barely on Twitter, but I also have Twitter.
That works. Well, Twitter, who knows what's going to happen with Elon buying it or not buying it? Who knows? You can get more of me and more episodes like this at thetheaterpodcast.com. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Yeah, I'm on TikTok. I'll say I'm on TikTok. Please leave a rating and a review wherever you are listening. Thank you to Jukebox the Ghost for the intro and outro music, and Eric Sirakian. Thank you so much. I've had such a good chat.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Take a deep breath, make the world a little colorful.